Hello, brothers and sisters from the United States. This is my personal letter number 7, the Big T. Year 2044, United States of America. In 2036, the United States had its first humanist government, and today, 8 years later, the results are astounding. But first, let's review recent history for the younger generations. Many years ago, in 2026, the USA was a country of stark contrasts, where the best and the worst coexisted in painful imbalance. In those years, it was home to most of the world's wealthy, yet also to over 600,000 people sleeping on the streets and 100 million living paycheck to paycheck. Quality healthcare was not within everyone's reach, nor was quality education nor decent housing. It had the finest athletes and also the highest obesity rate, the most brilliant scientists, and the world's largest prison population. A stunning space program, while Native Americans were still fighting for something as basic as clean water. In those dark years, it was the country that spent the most on its war on drugs, and also the one that mourned the most overdose victims. Back then, it had a weak, incompetent, and wealthy government and a hard-working, poor populace. A country where fewer and fewer people accumulated more of the wealth generated by all. And a nation blind to the rest of humanity, locked in a toxic information diet that sold fear and hate as entertainment. And then, in 2036, it happened. The Big T, the Great Transformation. It wasn't a coup, it wasn't an armed revolution, it was something more powerful. The collective awakening of a nation who understood that politics is not a spectator sport, but a tool everyone must wield. Neighbors organizing in community assemblies, young people demanding critical education instead of political entertainment, mothers, veterans, teachers, nurses, and workers of all colors demanding that the public budget, their budget, be used to heal, not to punish. And so the first humanist government in your history was born. Not left, not right, but common sense elevated to state policy. Because you discovered a fundamental truth that had been hidden from you for decades. Every problem has a solution. The difference is in the approach. Before, the US treated symptoms with violence, prisons for addicts, walls for migrants, bullets for the desperate. But starting in 2036, they began curing the root causes. Addiction rates fell by 73% because pain is treated with compassion, not handcuffs. And today, for the first time in your history, the United States guarantees the basics with dignity: shelter, healthcare, education, and a wage that allows you to dream. How was this possible without bankrupting the country or raising taxes on the middle and working classes? Simple. With government austerity applied where it was needed, in government and military excess. And with fair taxation where it always should have been, on the great fortunes and corporations that for decades paid less in taxes than their employees. In 2036, you discovered it wasn't a problem of resources, but of moral courage. Some fruits of these 8 years of transformations: new infrastructure, bridges that don't collapse, safe dams, aqueducts reaching the most remote communities. Total student debt cancellation. You freed a generation from the toll for learning. And now, public universities are the best of the best. State laboratories producing insulin and essential medicines at cost. No one dies because they can't afford a vial. Better paid police, trained in empathy and conflict resolution. Today they protect, they don't terrorize. To protect and serve regained its sacred meaning. Material support for small producers. Entrepreneurship is no longer a birthright privilege. Efficient public hospitals where wait times are measured in hours, not months. A basic income for seniors. No one ends their days in destitution after a lifetime of work. A minimum wage always above inflation, and 20 paid vacation days as a starting point, not a luxury. Abroad, the change was equally radical. The US government stopped being the world's bully. The first humanist administration in 2036 lifted every sanction against every country who simply wanted to decide their own destiny. Today, in 2044, your government cooperates with them on health, energy, science, and agriculture. The United States finally understood that the world is not your enemy, it is your extended family. And something historic happened. The United States, China, and Russia signed the Scientific Cooperation Agreement 2038. And with cooperation from other nations, together we're building sustainable lunar colonies, eradicating diseases, and bringing progress to places where only bombs and sanctions once reached. We are building what we call Humanity 2.0. Corporate capitalism was designed to build fortunes, not societies. Humanism builds social fabric, and social fabric is the only infrastructure that doesn't collapse in a crisis. But the quietest and most profound achievement was cultural. Today, children learn in schools that indigenous peoples were not savages, but survivors and guardians of wisdom we need to survive climate change. That African Americans were not a social problem, but victims of cruel times and the backbone of American culture. That migrants were not an invasion, but the same spirit that brought the first settlers, the courage to seek a better life. Television no longer sells fear. Social media no longer amplifies hatred, because we regulate platforms like we regulate water as a common good, not as a casino for human attention. And people, freed from that toxic diet, rediscovered something forgotten: trust in their neighbor. Was it easy? No. There was fierce resistance from those who profited from the chaos, from the criminal idiots who thought they were our masters. But when the people choose empathy over fear, nothing can stop them. When people understand that only the people can save the people, there is no turning back. Brothers and sisters of the sad past of 2026, this future didn't arrive by miracle. It arrived because you, those reading this from those dark years, decide to stop waiting for a savior and become the architects of your own history. Because you understood that true patriotism isn't just kissing a flag, but demanding that flag cover everyone equally. The Big T wasn't simply a change of government. It was the rebirth of a forgotten idea that the United States of America, in its noblest essence, was never a land of the privileged, but a promise of dignity for those who work, dream, and believe in tomorrow. That promise is alive and it's in your hands. Good luck and congratulations. A friend of 2044. See you next time.
You are the Big T.